Good day all. In this talk, I shall look at the history of the Internet. Marshall McLuhan argued that the age of written media was cut into two parts by the invention of the printing press, which made the written word into a true mass medium for the first time. I would similarly argue that the age of electronic media has been cut in two by the invention of the Internet, which made the electronic media available to the masses on a global scale for the first time. Today's Internet generation refers to all pre-Internet media, including the early electronic media, as legacy media. They're media whose legacy remains, but whose time has come and gone. They're dinosaurs, too big to know that they're already dead and all being replaced by the net. This is an exaggeration. New media do not destroy old media, just as TV did not destroy radio. Rather, over time, old and new media develop a division of labor and create a symbiotic relationship. All old media have had to develop online versions of themselves in order to survive, but they are surviving. There is some controversy surrounding the origin of the Internet, with both the US and Britain claiming to have invented it. The US claim is based on ARPANET, Advanced Research Projects Agency Network, which was the first large-scale computer network. It was built in 1969 by the US Department of Defense so that military contractors and universities doing military research could exchange information. In 1983, it was taken over by the National Science Foundation, which expanded it to more American universities and some Canadian universities, including the University of Regina. However, although this network became known as the Internet, it was not the Internet as we know it today, because it was a restricted private system, not a global system accessible to anyone with a computer. It was a precursor to the Internet we have today. In other words, the US invented the word Internet, but the actual Internet we use was created by English computer science prof. Tim Berners-Lee. In the course of the 1980s, he developed several new programming languages, particularly HTML and HTTP, which allowed links to be established between computers. In 1989, he founded the non-profit World Wide Web Consortium, which provides the organizational basis for the Internet. In 1991, the web was made available to the general public, but at first it was used mostly by academic institutions, and over the next 2 years, only about 50 websites were created. But in 1993, use of the web was made free. This ensured its swift spread while costing Tim Berners-Lee untold billions of dollars. I would argue that this is how we can know for sure that the Internet was invented in Britain, because if it had been invented in the US, we would be paying the World Wide Web Corporation every time we logged onto the Internet. However, do not be too sorry for poor Tim. In 2004, he was knighted for his work, so he is now Sir Tim. He has said that he originally developed the Internet primarily to help him communicate with his colleagues about their work. In other words, the Internet was basically invented to help computer science profs talk to other computer science profs about computer science. However, as we all know, it very quickly grew far beyond that. In 1993, Sir Tim set up a network linking together about 600 websites. By the end of the year, it already had over 10,000 websites. In 2002, the Internet passed 100 million active websites, and as of 2020, there were just under 200 million active websites out of about 1.5 billion total websites. Similarly, by the end of the 90s, there were over 100 million internet users worldwide. In 2005, the number passed 1 billion, in 2010, 2 billion, in 2015, 3 billion, and in 2020, it passed 4 billion. As of 2020, 57% of the world's population had internet access. The internet came to Canada in 1995, and already by 1997, about 25% of adult Canadians used the internet. By 2010, about 80% of adult Canadians used the internet, and by 2020, about 90% of all Canadians used the internet. When the internet first began, the most widely viewed item was sex, internet porn. Some said that this porn explosion would undermine the moral fabric of Western society. But porn site hits already began dropping in the late 90s, and by 2007, porn only accounted for about 10% of net searches. I would argue that the main reason for this is simply that the novelty has worn off. When it first began, the public's reaction was, wow, I can see sex on the internet every day. Now it's, I can see sex on the internet any day. Public curiosity has been satisfied, and now it's just another part of daily life. A 2008 study by Australian Bill Tancer found that the type of websites that now get by far the most hits are celebrity websites. Celebrity websites get more hits than all sites on politics, religion, health, and diet combined. Celebrity trivia is the number one type of information available on the internet globally. Tancer's study also found that the 21st century has seen a major increase in internet social media or social networking sites, especially among the 18 to 24 age group. Chat rooms, Facebook, blogging, tweeting, and so on are changing the way in which we communicate. Chat rooms are in effect like computerized campfires. People gather in the chat room to talk, just as they used to gather around the campfire to talk. The problem with chat rooms is that, unlike the campfire, the other person is not physically present, so they can pretend to be someone they're not. Sexual predators, in particular, have been known to lure their victims to them by pretending to be someone else. I would argue that this problem will diminish as cameras become universally built into computers. Anyone who refuses to show their face on camera is going to look increasingly suspicious. So, social networking over the internet will continue to grow. Indeed, from Tancer's study, it seems that today's young people see the internet more and more as a medium of personal communication, a sort of glorified telephone, rather than as a source of knowledge. This is appropriate, since more and more of them access it on their cell phones. The internet in general, and social media in particular, are another example of a social principle I've noted before. All new media are at first dominated by an elite few, but over time spread to society as a whole. Early electronic media, like radio, movies, and TV, are consumed by many, but produced by a few. This is largely because making media products, like movies or TV shows, is far too expensive for the average person. They can only be made by large corporations with millions of dollars to spend. This is why, as my history showed, these media have all become corporate oligopolies, dominated by a handful of big businesses. But internet products can be made for little or nothing. A computer or even a cell phone can be all you need to create a text or video which can be posted on the net. This means that every consumer is a potential producer. Postings are people-produced and feel more personal and intimate than professional media. Social media have personalized and deprofessionalized communication. They have been somewhat derisively termed pajamas media because they're supposedly made by guys sitting around at home in their pajamas. However, the clearly amateur nature of the production actually lends it legitimacy. Many people have become aware that commercial media have their biases. Postings made by everyman do not have those biases. While they may have individual biases of their own, those lack the consistency and unidirectionality of the commercial media, and so cancel each other out in a sense, leaving behind a socially generated viewpoint. Legacy media generate a monolithic viewpoint, but internet media generate a heterogeneity of viewpoints. Legacy media are created in a top-down fashion. Social media are created in a bottom-up or grassroots fashion. Legacy media all have gatekeepers. The internet does not. Legacy media are created and monitored by a tiny minority of experts, professionals, and corporate executives. The internet is open to everyone. The ubiquity of cell phones with built-in video recorders has turned most of the population into potential citizen journalists. These days, if anything unusual or interesting happens, it's most likely that someone will make a video recording of it. The poor quality which such recordings often have only confirms that they have not been professionally made and so are not staged but real-life events. The value of such citizen journalists was established in Canada in October of 2007, when Polish immigrant Robert Jacański was killed during his arrest by the RCMP at Vancouver Airport. The arresting officers originally claimed that they'd had no choice but to taser him repeatedly until he had a fatal heart attack because he was being violent and resisting arrest. However, this was disproven by video taken by another airport traveller. The officers were eventually charged with perjury and one did jail time. More broadly, this incident casts doubt on the testimony of police officers who invariably claim that their use of force was justified, even though eyewitnesses often disagree. In the past, police were generally given the benefit of the doubt. But cell phone video recordings have changed that, contributing, for example, to the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement in the US. While advertising has made its way onto the internet in general and social media in particular, it does not have the influence that it does over earlier media. This is because the internet is one of the few major institutions in modern capitalist society that is not primarily about making money. It's primarily about the free exchange of information. Most social media content is produced for free and consumed for free. It is a non-profit activity engaged in for social purposes, such as connecting with others. The internet also differs from early electronic media in that its products are available for longer. TV broadcasts shows according to a rigid schedule, and movies are in the theatres usually for only a few weeks. But once something's posted on the internet, it's there permanently, barring exceptional circumstances. This means that it can be accessed at any time, at the consumer's convenience, not on the network's timetable. This has freed consumers from what Paul Levinson has termed the appointment bondage of earlier media, and given them more control over their viewing time. In this regard, the internet has built on earlier recording devices which did the same, like VHS, TiVo, DVR, and PVR, but has also freed the individual from having to set up these recordings and store them. Internet communication has developed in two waves. The first wave was in the 1990s, the second wave was in the 2000s. The first wave saw the creation of websites, email, and blogs. The second wave saw the creation of social media. The first websites were established in 1991. Email, which is short for electronic mail, began in 1995, and blogs, which are short for web logs, began in 1997. But the 21st century has seen an explosion in social media sites. The most popular ones are Wikipedia, founded in 2001, MySpace and LinkedIn in 2003, Facebook and podcasting in 2004, Reddit and YouTube in 2005, Twitter and Spotify in 2006, Pinterest in 2009, Instagram in 2010, Snapchat in 2011, and TikTok in 2016. As you can see, while the creation of social media sites did continue in the 2010s, the main surge came in the 2000s. The term social media is, in a sense, redundant. All media are social media. They're all things used by society to communicate. A medium is something that comes between and connects two or more people, so it is by definition social. However, social media is in practice short for social networking media. That is to say, they are media whose principal goal is to enable people to establish or re-establish relationships and networks of relationships through electronic communication. In other words, social media are media for socializing. With the exception of Wikipedia, whose goal is to inform, and which I shall say more about shortly, social media simply provide a forum which the general public fills with whatever content it wishes. Different sites may focus on different types of media format. For example, Spotify on music, YouTube on videos, and Facebook on text and images. However, the content remains open. There are no gatekeepers other than those that monitor for legal issues like standards of decency. Social media establish networks because they don't just connect individuals. They generally create sets of friends who all interact on the site and come to form an online community. Social media sites may be divided into two main types: those that enable communication and those that provide information. Obviously, there is overlap here. All communication conveys some information. But in social networking sites, the principal purpose is just to establish contact. The content of the communication is secondary, often consisting of everyday trivia. On the other hand, other sites provide significant information to an audience that may remain largely anonymous. These include Wikipedia, blogs, and podcasts. I shall examine networking sites first. Social networking sites really took off with MySpace, launched in August of 2003. MySpace's tagline is "A place for friends," and MySpace introduced the system of online friends, which have become the basis of these networks. From 2005 to 2009, it was the largest social networking site in the world, and by 2009 it had over 300 million accounts and over 100 million active users. However, in 2009 it was surpassed in size by Facebook, and since then it has seen a continuing loss of membership to Facebook. Facebook was launched in 2004 at Harvard by Mark Zuckerberg and others. At first, it was just for university use, but it was opened up to the general public in 2006. Its growth was explosive. It passed 100 million active monthly users in 2008, 500 million in 2010, 1 billion in 2012, and 2 billion in 2017. As of 2022, it had almost 3 billion users and was the third most visited website in the world. It's been estimated that about 2/3 of the US population over the age of 12 uses Facebook. About half of users use it every day, for an average of about half an hour a day. However, this swift growth has been accompanied by swift commercialization. By 2007, Facebook already had over 100,000 pages of ads, and by 2012, its advertising income was over $5 billion. And these figures have only grown since then. July 2006 saw the launch of Twitter. Twitter's contribution to social media is brevity. It was the first such site to introduce a limit on the length of text postings, originally just 140 characters, expanded to 280 characters in 2017. Its postings, or tweets, have been termed microblogging or mini communications, which essentially consist of one-liners. This brevity means that a tweet can be conceived, written, and posted in just seconds. Compare that with how long it takes to write and deliver a paper letter, and you can see why Levinson called Twitter, quote, the most immediate written medium in history. The instantaneous nature of these communications carries great appeal. Most are personal and ephemeral. I'm eating pizza, or I'm bored. But its usage has been found to spike during popular social events broadcast internationally, such as the Olympics and FIFA World Cup games. By 2012, Twitter had over 100 million active users, and by 2019, it had over 300 million active users. Tweets can be made available to individuals, groups, or the whole world, making Twitter, as Levinson also says, quote, the most integrated combination of interpersonal and mass communication in history. The final social networking site that I shall look at is TikTok. This is, so far, the last major networking site to emerge, launching more than a decade after the other sites I've mentioned. The reason for this is that the other sites are all US-based, but TikTok is Chinese. It was launched in China in 2016 and globally in 2017. It was an immediate success, especially in the Asian market. By 2021, it had over 1 billion users and advertising revenue of over $4 billion. Studies have shown that over 40% of its users are aged 16 to 24, and that 90% of users say they use it daily, an average of 17 times for a total of about 1.5 hours per day. Its format is a combination of YouTube and Twitter. It hosts videos, but limits them to a maximum of 10 minutes in length. This is not long enough to record the kind of lengthy monologues that I provide in my talks, but it is long enough to perform a song, a dance, a comedy skit, or a stunt. These stunts quickly evolved into challenges, open dares to engage in some potentially harmful activity, such as eating Tide Pods. In practice, most of those who took up these challenges were teenagers, but both teens and adults died from taking the Tide Pod challenge. After this, TikTok banned such challenges. Instead, it's become a starting point for other cultural trends, such as lip syncing and memes. It provides a mobile app which allows users to create and edit short videos, even with background music if desired. As such, it continues the social media tradition of encouraging all consumers to also become producers. It remains very popular, especially with teens and young adults. Moving on now to examine those sites that provide information, I shall begin with the greatest provider of information in history, Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a unique institution. It's not like other social media in that it does not establish groups of friends who then interact as they wish. However, it is still part of social media in the manner of its creation. Wikipedia is an online encyclopedia. It originated as a complementary project for Newpedia, which was to be the first free online encyclopedia. However, Newpedia was still created like a traditional encyclopedia, with articles written and reviewed by experts. Wikipedia overthrew the tyranny of the experts, and in doing so proved to be far more popular than its predecessor. Wikipedia draws on the knowledge of the general public. Instead of being expert-driven, it is mass intelligence-driven. Articles can be written and edited by anyone. One might think that this would lead to complete chaos, but this has not proven to be the case. Wikipedia is not entirely devoid of gatekeepers. It does have administrators chosen by public discussion to oversee the process and ensure that certain standards are met. For example, the facts cited in any article must be confirmed by references to other media before they can stand. Articles without valid sources are removed, usually on the same day that they're posted, and often within minutes. Articles which feature errors are corrected by their readers. This fits in with the social media principle. Every consumer a producer. Wikipedia is a group blog. Anyone can contribute to Wikipedia, bearing in mind that their work will likely be edited at some point. However, Wikipedia has a dedicated staff of a few hundred volunteers who make the bulk of edits, backed up by some 45,000 registered editors, 130,000 active editors, and about 300,000 contributors globally. About half of all edits are made by just 1% of users, and 90% of edits are made by the top 15% of the most active participants. Edits are an essential part of how Wikipedia operates. In 2022, it had over 15 million edits per month. However, while most edits are done by these insiders, most content still originates with outsiders. Wikipedia wages an everyday war between truth and falsehood. But over the long term, it confirms the old saying that the truth will out. Wikipedia articles may contain errors or deliberate pranks or vandalism, but over time, these are weeded out. The longer an article's been posted, the more likely it is to be accurate. Problems with inaccuracies really only arise in recent postings. These happen primarily because Wikipedia has become more than an encyclopedia. It has also become, in effect, an online newspaper. Social events get posted on Wikipedia almost immediately, something that couldn't happen with a paper encyclopedia. Early reports are often inaccurate. It takes time to figure out what happened in many social situations. But over time, society as a whole does figure it out and puts it on Wikipedia. While Wikipedia's reliability was questioned in the 2000s, it has generally been praised in the 2010s and 2020s. As Wikipedia's reliability has grown, so has its popularity. It was founded in 2001. By 2006, it was receiving about 1,800 new articles added daily. In September 2007, it passed 2 million articles, making it the largest encyclopedia ever. After this, its rate of growth slowed, but continued. By 2022, it was available in 329 languages and had over 6.6 million articles in English and over 60 million articles in all languages. Unlike paper encyclopedias, it can potentially grow to be infinitely long. In 2007, it entered the world's top 10 most popular websites, and in 2022, it was the 5th most popular website in the world, with over 2 billion visits per month. It is now, by far, the largest and most read reference work in history. Academics have been mixed in their reception of Wikipedia. For some, no encyclopedia is reliable enough. They maintain that whether on paper or online, encyclopedias are not appropriate sources for papers written by students, let alone faculty. However, this stance is softening as Wikipedia is proving its reliability. Its articles contain endnotes with sources and a bibliography for further reading, just like academic articles. My own attitude is very simple. I used to tell my students, I have no problem with your research beginning with Wikipedia as long as it doesn't end there. Like all encyclopedias, Wikipedia consists of short articles. These can provide a very good introduction to a topic, but sometimes you need more than a few pages to understand something. Sometimes you have to read a whole book, or even several books. Personally, I find Wikipedia more useful for facts than theories. As long as you're not talking about very recent events, Wikipedia is the world's best source for accurate names, dates, facts, and figures. I've used it myself in writing my lectures and talks. However, when it comes to explaining theories, such as sociological theories, you generally need a bit more material than Wikipedia provides. While Wikipedia is not perfectly reliable, neither is any other information source. Traditional encyclopedia articles written by experts have also been found to contain errors. Traditional newspaper articles contain biases introduced by their commercial nature. But Wikipedia is run by volunteers on a non-profit basis and contains no advertisements. It is funded mostly by donations from readers. In social terms, this means that Wikipedia does not present the views of the rich upper class or of the middle class experts, but of society as a whole. In a nutshell, Wikipedia has democratized knowledge. This is what makes it part of social media, even though it's an information site rather than a networking site. Wikipedia both reflects society's knowledge and adds to it. It makes reliable information on virtually any topic available to virtually everyone. If you want to know something, just go to Wikipedia. It has probably done more to make global society better informed than any other single source. As a former educator, I would have to say that it is one of the most positive social developments made possible by the internet. However, the information provided by information-oriented sites does not have to be as serious as that on Wikipedia. It can also consist of light-hearted infotainment or straight entertainment, such as that provided on many blogs and podcasts. Blogs primarily provide text. This may consist of news, opinions, fiction, or poetry, essentially either a diary of personal events and observations or personal artistic creations. Podcasts consist of audio or video recordings. As such, podcasts, such as those posted on YouTube, are more likely to consist of lectures and talks, or more audiovisual arts such as song, dance, comedy, or mini-movies. Either way, they are something informative and or entertaining which the producer wishes to present to an audience. This audience may be just a small group of friends, or it may be the general public. Probably the principal motivation of most bloggers and podcasters is not financial, but rather the desire to get something off their chest. They have something they want to say, or write, or sing, and social media provide them with a free forum to do so. Compared to expensive legacy media, they are literally free speech. the ability to potentially address society as a whole at no personal cost is a luxury which has not existed since the days humanity lived in small tribes. A few more words on blogs. The term blog is short for weblog, and blogging began in 1997. It evolved from pre-internet computer communications, such as the chat rooms developed in the 70s and the bulletin boards developed in the 80s. It combines the personal control over communication provided by email with the wide reach of the mass media. While some blogs are restricted to friends of the publisher, most are open to the general public and seek to attract as large an audience as possible. Blogging may utilize images, but it is primarily a written medium. It allows the individual to address the world. It is an updated form of vanity press, self-published writing which may or may not be of interest to anyone else. It may literally be a log in the sense of a record of the individual's daily events. More commonly, however, it is a forum for the expression of opinions and commentary on current events and public figures. As such, it is reminiscent of early newspapers before they became corporations. Blogging has re-individualized news production, especially its editorial function. Unlike legacy media, blogs have no gatekeepers other than the producer. While only a small minority of people ever get published in paper media, there are millions of bloggers. By 2007, there were over 100 million blogs, and by 2022, there were over 600 million. This means that the blogosphere contains a wide diversity of opinion, with no common ideology or interest except in blogging itself. Through the 2000s, blogs were almost invariably the work of individuals or occasionally small groups. However, the 2010s saw the emergence of multi-author blogs, which are blogs put out by organizations such as corporations or universities. This has, to some extent, meant the commercialization of the blogosphere, since many corporate blogs are in practice just another form of advertising. Similarly, since support for just about any position can be found in the blogosphere, politicians have taken to using blogs and citing other blogs to promote themselves. Blogs have become an increasingly important part of our political landscape in the 21st century. Blogs have evolved into podcasts, where blogs primarily consist of written text, podcasts primarily consist of audio or video recordings. In blogs, the producer writes. In podcasts, the producer talks. Both primarily consist of the producer's views on some topic. Technically, video podcasts are called vidcasts, but the term podcast has become commonly used for both audio and video postings. Podcasts range from scripted talks, like mine, to completely improvised speeches or discussions between two or more persons. Adam Curry has been called the Podfather for championing podcasts in 2004 and creating the PodSafe Music Network in 2005. But podcasting really took off with the public debut of YouTube in November 2005. YouTube's motto is broadcast yourself. It exploded in popularity so quickly that in October 2006 it was bought by Google for $1.65 billion. Since then, YouTube has become the second most visited website in the world after Google search. By 2019, over 500 hours of videos per minute were being uploaded onto YouTube. By 2022, it had over 2.5 billion monthly users who collectively watched over 1 billion hours of videos per day. And it had advertising revenue of about $20 billion a year. YouTube has made deals with media corporations, including NBC, CBS, MGM, and BBC, among others, to create their own YouTube channels featuring their shows and ads. However, most YouTube videos remain generated by individuals. Since they're virtually free, quick, and easy to make, they don't need to attract large audience figures or make a lot of money to persist. Like blogging, podcasting has also had a growing political influence. YouTube videos have both made and broken political careers. In 2007, YouTube, together with CNN, organized debates between the US presidential candidates in which the general public submitted questions via YouTube videos, thereby democratizing the electoral process. Even more directly, sociologist Philip Howard quoted an activist as saying that the protests that shook the Arab world in the so-called Arab Spring of 2010 to 2012 used, quote, Facebook to schedule the protests, Twitter to coordinate, and YouTube to tell the world. To prevent this from recurring, a number of countries in North Africa and South Asia have temporarily blocked access to YouTube, primarily for political reasons, for example, during periods of civil unrest or in the run-up to elections. Even so, YouTube has become an increasingly important source for both news information and political opinion. Finally, YouTube has provided a new home and a new career for retired academics like Jordan Peterson and myself. It has provided a new forum for academic talks and discussions, which has greatly increased their popularity. When I began teaching sociology in 1990, the internet didn't even exist, much less podcasting. I could never have imagined that one day I would potentially be teaching sociology to the whole world. Of course, my audience is currently a long way from that, but one of the key characteristics of internet media is their permanence. These videos will long outlive me and may continue attracting more watchers indefinitely. Or not. Only time will tell. The rise of the internet has had economic and political implications, which I have briefly mentioned, but which I'm now going to examine in greater depth. In economic terms, first of all, this growth has included a growth in internet advertising and online shopping. Advertising appeared on the internet quickly, particularly in the form of so-called pop-up ads. However, through the 90s, they had little impact because they were too annoying and too easy to click past. So at first, relatively little advertising money went on internet ads, and online shopping remained at a fairly low level. But that began to change in the 2000s, with more and more money being spent there. Partly, this is simply because people are getting more used to the internet, and more people are using the internet for more things, including shopping. The other big change, I would argue, is that websites integrate ads into themselves more now. The ads are built into the websites, not just pop-ups. In particular, that includes websites from other media. Newspapers, magazines, and radio stations all run online editions or versions of their products, which contain the same ads as the regular products. So the public has become more accepting of ads on the internet, with the result that online ad revenue has increased significantly. In Canada, in 2001, advertisers only spent $86 million on online ads out of a total of about $10 billion spent on ads. But this increased through the 2000s at an accelerating pace. In just 1 year, from 2009 to 2010, it increased by 23% to reach $2.2 billion. 2010 was the first year in which online ads surpassed newspaper ads, which cost $2.1 billion. More is now spent on internet ads than on any other medium except TV ads, which cost $3.4 billion in 2010. TV ads have also been growing through the 2000s, not as fast as internet ads, but still by 9% from 2009 to 2010. In 2010, total ad expenditure was about $12 billion, and the big three were TV, internet, and press in that order. The rest was spent on a variety of things. I'm not going to give you any more statistics, but in order of greatest expenditure, they were mail-out flyers, yellow pages, radio, billboards and posters, movie ads, and miscellaneous minor stuff. Over the long term, like most processes of growth, the growth of advertising is presumably following the S-curve. Period of initial slow growth, then acceleration into takeoff and swift growth, then a slowdown with diminishing returns, ultimately reaching a plateau. At present, internet ads are in the period of swift growth. TV, which has been around longer, is slowing down but still growing. I would guess that internet and TV ads will probably plateau roughly level, reflecting the social reality that internet and TV are becoming of roughly equal importance as Western society's two most widely used media. But, however much money they spend, advertisers are never going to have as much influence over the internet as they have over legacy media. Newspapers, magazines, radio, and TV could not exist as we know them without advertising. But the internet would get along just fine without ads. Internet shopping has similarly grown with the internet. Online shopping began in 1994 and took off with the launch of eBay in 1995 and Amazon, which was founded by Jeff Bezos in 1994, but only went public and launched its distribution network in 1997. eBay began as an online auction site, then expanded into online sales and various other forms of electronic commerce, or e-commerce. It's free to buyers, but sellers pay a fee for listing their items and another fee if they're sold. By 1998, it had over 500,000 users and revenue of $4.7 million. By 2008, it had hundreds of millions of users and revenue of $7.7 billion. By 2021, it had revenue of over $10 billion a year and assets of over $26 billion. Amazon has been even more successful than eBay. It began by selling media products like music, video games, and books, but its operations have expanded to where it's been called the everything store. Anything you want, you can get it from Amazon. By 2007, it had sales of over $14 billion. By 2021, it had sales of over $470 billion and profits of over $33 billion. In 2020, its market value went over $1 trillion, and it became one of the US's top 10 corporations by revenue. In 2021, it passed Walmart as the world's largest retailer outside China. As of 2022, it is the 14th most visited website in the world, with over 2 billion visits per month, and it has become both the world's largest online retailer and the world's largest internet company. Amazon Prime, its paid subscription plan, has over 75 million subscribers in the US and over 200 million subscribers worldwide. About 2/3 of all Americans have shopped on Amazon, including over 90% of online shoppers, some 40% of whom buy something from Amazon at least once a month. In Canada, Amazon is the #1 e-commerce site with over 160 million monthly visitors. Over 70% of Canadians have shopped on Amazon. Globally, online shopping has grown to where in 2020 over 2 billion people shopped online, spending a combined total of over $4.2 trillion. In Canada, sales figures for online shopping grew steadily through the 2000s. In 2003, it was $3.1 billion. By 2009, it was $15.1 billion. However, these figures actually represent a very small percentage of total retail sales. In 2003, total sales in Canada were $331 billion, so online sales represented less than 1% of that. In 2009, total sales were $450 billion, so online sales were about 3.3% of that. Canadians were slower to embrace online shopping than consumers in the US and the UK. Still, it did grow steadily. In 1997, only about 2.5% of adult Canadians shopped online. But by 2010, this had risen to about 40% of adult Canadians, and by 2020, it was about 80%. Then came COVID and social distancing. COVID doubled online shopping rates almost overnight. Between May 2019 and May 2020, online sales in Canada rose by over 110%. As the pandemic declined, online shopping did not, although its rate of growth slowed. Between June 2020 and June 2021, there was a further increase of over 25%. The biggest growth was in groceries. In 2016, just 5% of Canadians bought groceries online. By 2020, this was up to 17%. These figures show that once individuals start to shop online, they tend to do it more and more. In 2003, the average online shopper's annual expenditure was about $1,000. By 2009, that had already risen to about $1,500. What kind of items do people buy online? In 2022, the number one item was computers and electronics, which were bought online by over 40% of Canadians. After that came books and magazines, clothing and accessories, including jewelry, travel and event tickets, music, computer software, and games. What most of these items have in common is that they are media-based or information-based products. A ticket is nothing but information. It informs someone to let you into somewhere, theatre, an airplane, wherever. These days, most airlines don't even bother to issue paper tickets. The ticket only exists in the computer system. It is pure information. Similarly, books, music, computers, and computer software and games, these are all information-based products. The only real exception is clothing. And here again, much of the clothing sold over the internet consists of things like t-shirts, which are bought not because the buyer needs something to wear, but because they have some cool saying or picture on the front, which means that they too are really information-based products. Those are the kind of products that could be most readily sold over the internet because all they need is a picture and a brief blurb, and the consumer basically knows everything they need to know about the product. But when it comes to other kinds of products, people still prefer to take a more hands-on approach. For many products, Canadians like to see what's available on the net, or in other words, to do some background research online, but they still like to actually see and hear and touch the product for themselves before they buy. What this means, I would argue, is that the internet is gradually helping to make Canadians better educated consumers by making it much easier for them to compare products and prices. This process has also been helped by the establishment of product reviews, both from experts and everyday consumers. Such reviews, which were only available in specialized periodicals before the coming of the internet, have acted as a partial antidote to the self-serving advertisements which businesses put out and provide a gauge of consumer satisfaction with products. However, the internet also has the potential not just to make Canadians better educated consumers, but to make them better educated in general. The internet can allow anyone to gain the equivalent of a university degree without ever leaving the comfort of their own home. All you have to pay for is a computer, an internet hookup, and some websites, all of which put together comes to a small fraction of the cost of a traditional education. So, for very little money, the internet can provide information on any serious topic: science, philosophy, religion, whatever. And yet, Tancer's study shows that those are not the kinds of topics that are most commonly searched for on the internet. Most people are more interested in celebrity trivia than in serious knowledge. I'm going to conclude this talk with some observations and speculations about the political impact of the internet. Potentially, the internet could revolutionize politics because it is a source of information which is not owned or controlled by anyone. In social terms, this is primarily how the internet differs from all other mass media. Press, as I said in one of my other talks, was originally controlled by politicians. The electronic media were partly set up by governments, and these days they're mostly run by corporations. But nobody runs the internet. Governments have tried to censor it. Corporations have used it for advertising. But neither lawyers, guns, nor money have been able to control the internet. The internet was created by academics for the academic purpose of the free exchange of information. This means that the internet represents another swing of the historic pendulum. As I've said, every new medium is at first controlled and used by a minority to gain wealth and power, but over time spreads to society as a whole. Writing was at first controlled by a minority, but was made universal by the invention of the printing press. Similarly, the early electronic media, movies, radio, and TV, are, as we've seen, all now controlled by corporate oligopolies. But not the internet. The internet is the new printing press. It provides virtually uncensored information, virtually free, to virtually everyone. This means that the internet has the potential to greatly democratize society. Democracy is based on making an informed decision. But as we all know, politicians tell lies. The internet can potentially help the average person to see through those lies. If you want to know if a politician's telling the truth, just Google it. A well-informed society is a truly democratic society, at least potentially. However, as we've seen, it's not that simple. People are apparently far more interested in understanding celebrities than in understanding politics. Just because the information is out there doesn't mean that people will access it, even if all it takes is the click of a mouse. Over time, I think that just as people have become more used to shopping online, so too will they become more used to getting their political information online. I think we can safely say that future election campaigns will be fought much more over the internet. Indeed, this is something that we've already begun to see. In the US, Presidents Barack Obama and Donald Trump have both used the internet, but in very different ways. Obama used it to promote democracy. Trump used it to subvert democracy. Obama's 2018 presidential election campaign was the first to use the internet to a significant degree. His website connected him to his supporters as no politician's website had before. It has even been suggested that Obama won the election because of his use of the internet. I think that's an exaggeration, but I certainly think that his use of the internet helped his cause. His website contributed in several ways. Firstly, it connected his supporters with each other. This strengthened their commitment to each other. It's one thing to know in abstract terms that there are many others who support the same politician you do. It's quite another to communicate with actual people who share your views and in large quantities. Individuals may waver in their beliefs, but joining a group brings an emotional commitment to the group's subculture and goals. Second, it connected his supporters to him. Obama personally made posts which each individual could read and feel as if they were personally directed to him or her. This strengthened the parasocial relationship between Obama and his supporters, where common people feel like they have a personal relationship with a celebrity. Occasionally, even direct personal communication could take place via postings and replies. Third, it mobilized his supporters. David Gergen of CNN even said that, quote, he, Obama, married the internet to community organizing. Normally, campaign volunteers form a tiny minority of supporters, but through the website, those volunteers persuaded more to join them, and soon Obama had a small unpaid army working for him. Such volunteer work was made easier in that much of it could now be done over the internet from the volunteers' own homes. Fourth, it made a lot of money. The internet allowed Obama to democratize the fundraising process. Traditionally, politicians have obtained a relatively small number of large campaign contributions from rich business persons. This makes them beholden to those businesses. But in both the 2008 and 2012 elections, Obama broke records for the number of contributions he received, most of them from private individuals. Instead of a few large donations, Obama received many small donations. Together, they added up. In 2012, Obama became the first presidential candidate to raise over $1 billion for his campaign. He also became the first president in a long time to owe his election more to the common people than to big business. And this showed in the policies he implemented. Obama did not just use his campaign website. He opened an account on Twitter, which by September 2011 had over 10 million followers. Even more influentially, he posted videos on YouTube, which have been compared to the fireside chats which FDR conducted over the radio. Through YouTube, Obama could potentially speak in a very personal fashion to every American. His 2008 campaign videos received close to 15 million hours of views. These viewing figures were doubtless enhanced by Obama's being what Paul Sappho called cybergenic. In other words, he looked good on video. YouTube even helped Obama inadvertently. In June 2007, YouTube posted a music video entitled Crush on Obama. It featured Obama girl Amberly Ettinger seductively singing of her love for the politician. Its producers have stated that it was intended just for fun, but it went viral and surely contributed to Obama's 2008 election victory. Obama did not just use the internet to get elected. On the very day of his inauguration, he launched an official White House channel on YouTube, and his staff began to transform the official president's website, whitehouse.gov. Under the previous George Bush administration, this site had simply been used for press releases, transcripts of speeches, and propaganda documents. Obama made the site much more interactive. All of his proposed legislation was published on the website for 5 days, encouraging feedback from the general public. While we don't know how much influence such feedback had on Obama, he has said that he wanted to hear from America as a whole, not just his small circle of advisors. In 2014, he met with leading YouTube content producers to create videos which would improve the general public's understanding of Obamacare, and more broadly, to connect the presidency with the YouTube generation. At the least, the website and YouTube channel provided ways for the general public to communicate with the president, which had not previously existed. As such, they promoted greater democracy. Donald Trump has also become known for his use of the internet, but in much more negative terms. Trump was not interested in using social media to listen to the people, but only to get the people to listen to him. While Trump has used several social media, including Facebook and Instagram, he's become most known for his use of Twitter. Twitter clearly contributed to his electoral success in 2016. If Obama was the first internet president, then Trump was the first Twitter president, or for short, the first twit. Apparently, Twitter's one-liner format matches Trump's attention span perfectly. His tweets may be considered an updated but dumbed-down version of the one-line quotations in Chairman Mao's Little Red Book, although I'm sure that Trump himself would not like that comparison. Trump joined Twitter in May 2009, and over the next 12 years sent out over 57,000 tweets, including over 8,000 during his 2016 election campaign and over 25,000 during his presidency. On a single day of his presidency, June the 5th, 2020, he tweeted over 200 times. Being the narcissist that he is, throughout his tenure, he largely ignored the White House press secretary and instead made policy announcements himself over social media, especially Twitter. The White House confirmed that these tweets were official statements. The problem with this is that these tweets were frequently offensive and/or inaccurate. In July 2019, the House of Representatives censured him for, quote, racist comments in a tweet he'd posted 2 days previously. In 2020, he posted various forms of misinformation about COVID, including the bizarre claim that it could be treated by injecting disinfectants and drinking bleach, both measures which are certainly harmful and potentially fatal. Doctors scrambled to tell the general public not to follow Trump's advice. Trump coined the term fake news, but nobody spread more fake news than him. Academic fact-checkers have determined that over 90% of the public statements made by Trump during his election campaign and his presidency were false. I personally find it mind-boggling that millions of Americans believed and still believe in Trump, even though almost every word that comes out of his mouth is a lie. I can only conclude that many people prefer to hear what they want to hear rather than hear the truth. But not everyone. Complaints about Trump's tweets mounted. As they did so, Trump's response was to repeatedly claim that Twitter was biased against him. As usual, there's no evidence to support his claims. In January 2021, Trump finally went too far. His failure to obtain re-election led to his baseless accusations of electoral fraud, and then his incitement to riot, pleading for his supporters to overturn the election. Trump has been held largely responsible for the January 6th storming of the Capitol building, the largest attempt to forcibly reverse the outcome of a presidential election in US history. Following this violent event, Facebook and Instagram banned Trump for 2 years, and Twitter gave him a lifetime ban for, quote, glorifying violence and for, quote, repeated and severe violations of its civic integrity policy. However, after Elon Musk purchased Twitter, he reinstated Trump in November 2022. Trump has declared his intention to run for re-election, but with multiple lawsuits pending against him, his political future is uncertain. What is certain is that Trump has used social media, particularly Twitter, to spread misinformation, incite violence, and subvert democracy. Compared to Trump, Richard Nixon really was not a crook. Watergate pales beside the storming of the Capitol. And so, between Obama and Trump, we've seen that internet media can be used for good or bad. The media, like all forms of technology, just does things. Good people use it to do good things. Bad people use it to do bad things. This is not going to change, no matter how much the technology itself changes. The largely uncensored nature of the internet means that while there is a lot of valid political information out there, there's also an awful lot of lies, propaganda, and sheer nonsense, such as that spread by Trump. Sorting truth from lies can require more time and effort than most people are willing to put in, particularly when the internet can just bury you in trivia, so that getting at the truth becomes a needle in a haystack job. So, while the internet could serve to democratize society, it could also do the exact opposite. The internet provides both governments and corporations with a database which they can use to monitor the general population. Corporations monitor purchases and online searches so as to increase their hold over the consumer. Governments monitor all kinds of things, such as what kinds of websites people watch and who they communicate with, so as to increase their control over society. These days, in the name of security, governments are invading personal privacy more and more. People have been arrested and interrogated just for looking up websites which are considered subversive or terrorist or against the interests of the government. In his famous novel 1984, George Orwell predicted that one day Big Brother would be watching you all the time through a camera mounted on every TV in every home that you couldn't turn off. We haven't quite got there yet, but there is a camera on every laptop, and Big Brother or Big Government is watching the internet. So, only time will tell whether the computerization of information and the coming of the internet will better serve the interests of democracy or of dictatorship. Personally, my money is on democracy, but that's a guess, not a guarantee. That concludes what I have to say on internet media. A transcript of this talk is attached if you're interested. Good day.